The Galactic Council's elite guard had faced down warp pirates, quelled rebellions on 12 worlds, and held the line against the Void Swarm incursions. They were the finest warriors the galaxy had ever assembled, 7-foot-tall Corinthians with exoskeletons that could deflect plasma. Vexorian telepaths, who could predict an enemy's move before they made it, and Draconians whose scales were harder than starship hulls. But none of them, not a single battle-hardened soldier, could withstand the wrath of one human grandmother. Captain Velra Stormcrest of the Corinthian 4th Legion stood at the head of the formation, her violet carapace gleaming under the station's artificial lighting. Her compound eyes, which could track a target at 3,000 meters, were currently fixed on a very small problem scurrying across the polished floor of the diplomatic wing. Cub Jinky Swiftpaw, a Luparian youngling no more than 4 standard years old, was causing absolute chaos. The child, covered in soft gray fur with oversized ears that flopped as he ran, had somehow escaped from the Luparian delegation's quarters and was now weaving between the legs of the elite guard, giggling with pure, unfiltered joy. In his tiny paws, he clutched what appeared to be a ceremonial data crystal belonging to the Vexorian ambassador. "Retrieve the juvenile," Captain Stormcrest barked, her mandibles clicking with irritation. 6 guards immediately moved to intercept. The Luparian cub, demonstrating the natural agility of his species, dodged left, then right, then scrambled up a decorative pillar with the ease of a creature born to climb. The guards collided with each other in a spectacular display of professional incompetence. "Unacceptable!" Stormcrest roared. "This is a diplomatic incident in the making. Someone grab that. Jinky Swiftpaw, you get down here this instant." The voice cut through the commotion like a plasma blade through butter. Every guard froze. Cub Jinky froze mid-climb. Even Captain Stormcrest's antennae stopped twitching. An elderly human woman, no more than 5.5 feet tall, came striding down the corridor. She wore a simple floral dress and sensible shoes. Her hair was silver white, pulled back in a neat bun. Wire-rimmed spectacles perched on her nose. She carried a small handbag over one arm. She looked utterly harmless. She was absolutely terrifying. "Jinky," the woman repeated, her voice dropping to a tone that somehow conveyed infinite disappointment, endless patience, and the promise of consequences all at once. "What did I tell you about running off?" The cub's ears flattened against his skull. His tail drooped. In a voice barely above a whimper, he said, "Sorry, Grandma Chen. Down. Now." Jinky scrambled down the pillar so fast he nearly tumbled. He landed on his paws and shuffled toward the human woman, head bowed, the stolen data crystal extended in his paws like an offering to an angry deity. Grandma Chen, as her identification badge, proclaimed her to be Dorothy Chen, Cultural Liaison, Human Delegation, took the crystal with a practiced motion. She inspected it, then looked down at the cub with an expression that made Captain Stormcrest unconsciously take a step backward. "What do we say?" Grandma Chen asked. "I'm sorry for taking what wasn't mine," Jinky mumbled. And for running away when I was supposed to stay in quarters. And for making everyone chase me? That's right." Grandma Chen's expression softened just a fraction. She knelt down her old knees, creaking audibly, and looked the cub in the eyes. "Jinky, sweetheart, I know you're excited to be on the station, but these people have important work to do. You can't just run around taking things and causing trouble. Do you understand?" "Yes, Grandma Chen. Good boy." She patted his head between the ears, and the cub's tail gave a tentative wag. "Now, I think you owe these nice soldiers an apology too." Jinky turned toward the assembled elite guard, the finest warriors in the galaxy, and bowed low. "I'm sorry for causing trouble." There was a moment of stunned silence. Then Captain Stormcrest cleared her throat. "Apology. Accepted. Juvenile." Grandma Chen stood up, her knees protesting again, and only then did she seem to notice the dozen heavily armed guards surrounding them. She looked at them the way she might look at a group of neighborhood kids who'd trampled her garden. "And you," she said, pointing a finger at Captain Stormcrest. The 7-foot-tall warrior actually flinched. Do you have any idea how to handle children? Grandma Chen's voice carried a note of reproach that made every guard in the formation want to apologize for crimes they hadn't committed. Chasing him like that? Of course he ran faster. Children aren't enemy combatants, Captain. You don't pursue them, you redirect them. We were attempting to prevent a diplomatic incident, ma'am. Stormcrest managed, her usual commanding tone reduced to something almost apologetic. By terrifying a 4-year-old? Grandma Chen shook her head. When a child misbehaves, you don't need weapons or tactics. You need patience, a firm voice, and the absolute certainty that they will listen when you call them. She walked over to the nearest guard, a massive draconian whose scales were scarred from 100 battles, and looked up at him. You have children? Soldier? Yes, ma'am. 3 hatchlings. Then you should know better. She softened her tone slightly. Children need boundaries, not battle formations. Remember that. Yes, ma'am. The draconian rumbled, actually sounding chastened. Grandma Chen turned back to the group at large. The entire elite guard warriors who had never retreated from any enemy stood at attention like students called to the principal's office. Now, I'm going to take young Jinky back to his parents, she announced. And I expect all of you to continue your important work, protecting this station. But perhaps next time a child wanders by, you might try a kind word before deploying tactical maneuvers. Understood? Yes, ma'am. The response was immediate and unified, delivered with more snap than their usual military acknowledgments. Grandma Chen nodded, satisfied. She took Jinky's paw in her hand and began walking back toward the Luparian quarters, the cub trotting obediently beside her. As they disappeared around the corner, Jinky's voice drifted back. Grandma Chen, are you going to tell my mama? What do you think, sweetheart? The cub's whimper of despair made several guards wince in sympathy. Captain Stormcrest stood motionless for a long moment, then slowly turned to face her troops. Not one of them met her eyes. Report to Training Room 7, she said quietly. We apparently need instruction on civilian interaction protocols. Yes, Captain, came the subdued chorus. As the elite guard filed out, a young Vexorian recruit leaned toward his companion and whispered, I've faced death a dozen times without fear. But that human female. I know, his companion replied, shuddering. My telepathy couldn't even touch her. She has the will of tempered steel, wrapped in floral print. Behind them, Captain Stormcrest allowed herself the smallest hint of a smile. She made a mental note to recommend Grandma Dorothy Chen for the next hostage negotiation training seminar. If she could make the elite guard stand down with just a disappointed look, the pirates wouldn't stand a chance.